everybody. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something that I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say carpe diem, go after the things that you want in life. Something that I wanted to do this year was to rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, and this time talk about it with other people, which has been a novelty. And we've up-leveled that. I'm getting a chance to talk with people who actually worked on this show. And before I introduce today's interview guest, just a quick housekeeping item. If you are brand new to the show Halt and Catch Fire, and you want spoiler-free coverage, go to the episode recaps. Those are spoiler-free up until the episode that you're on in the coverage. The interviews, anything is fair game. We could mention anything that happens in any season of the show, particularly with this one. So just to be aware of that up front. But hopefully you'll stick around because I've got a great guest today who is Brian R. Norris, who played Elliot for the first six episodes of season 4. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So fun to talk with you. I have a ton of questions about season 4, but my tendency is to start where I think it makes the most sense to start, which is how did you get onto the show to begin with? What was that process for you?
So that audition came in on a day. It was a quick turnaround audition. I remember it was in the subject line, and that no actor really wants to see that because it probably means you have a tape they have to turn around in like 12 to 20 hours. And I had work that night. I teach acting classes. And so I was working until at least 10:30 that night. So I get home and I know that this audition I really want is waiting for me because I loved the show. I was a fan of it from the jump. I'd never gotten to audition for it before. I don't know if I knew that it was ending yet, but I think we all knew that we were never sure how long that show was going to be with us. And so it was a really exciting opportunity, but it felt rushed. And I did a tape. My wife is my reader at home. And so we do that late at night. And I remember, to be honest, that after I was editing it and I was looking at it on my computer screen, I didn't love it. I had this moment of I don't think I did this. I had this cool opportunity for the show that I love, and this part's good for me. And I don't think I did it. And I felt really bad about myself. And I took a shower. I hadn't hit send yet. And I was in the shower. I'm going over the audition again and again, which is what every actor does right after they audition. It's just they replay it. And something sparked, a different impulse into the scene. And it was like an aha moment. I felt like Christopher Lloyd, Back to the Future, and I'm just I got to get out of the shower. I think it was 1:30 in the morning by this point because I worked on the audition, taped it. My wife had gone to bed, and I wake her up. And I say, I promise if you wake up, I will book this. Just please. And she was like, okay. So we go, we set it up. I think we do it in one take, maybe two. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is the thing. And I sent that off. And I remember going to bed being like, okay, I showed up today. I figured it out. So I didn't know if it was going to turn into a job, but I did know that I found a story and a character that was true.
What did your wife think of the second round of it?
I think she was pretty groggy. Well, actually, she's right here. What did you think of that second audition, honey? She doesn't remember it. It was 2:30 in the morning. I think she was like, I'm proud of you, honey. I think when I booked it, we both were really happy about that. And the fact that she gets to share in that story is a really special part of that. She just moved in. We were dating at that time, but that was just an exciting thing to get to share. So
Aww.
Yeah, I will remember that forever. I also remember that the character's name at the time was Yossi. And I thought, I've never auditioned for someone named Yossi before. I don't know what they're imagining initially for this, but let's just go for it. And then by the time I showed up on set, I was Elliot. So.
Okay, well, there you have it.
Well, yeah.
Well, the couple that works on the audition for Halt and Catch Fire together stays together. I think that's what the saying is.
Yes, a long-running saying.
Yeah, if you heard it once, you heard it 100 times. So you knew a ton about the show already, but you probably would have also known that the show kind of keeps reinventing itself every season. So how would you prep for a role like this, knowing that things might be changing on you in the show?
So I think that when I was first starting out, I had really grand plans about how you get to create characters. And I think in my head, everyone could be like Daniel Day-Lewis or Austin Butler and go like move away for 3 months and create a person and live in it. And my experience of being an auditioning actor is that you don't know anything. Sometimes the sides aren't even the real sides, and you don't even know if that's true or not. Sometimes you're working on something and you realize this is from a movie from 10 years ago. There's no way this is what I'm doing. So, what you try to find is a story that you can commit to when you show up on set, something that you feel really confident in, but it ends up being really present to the circumstances of that scene. So, I knew from the initial audition that he was partnered with Vera. I don't think they even said married. And I knew that there were at least 3 episodes, so he was going to come back. But in terms of like planning beyond that, that I remember on the first day there were whispers that Vera was going to get fitted for a pregnancy belly, and we're like, what? That would be really neat. Oh my goodness! And so we're finding these things out as we go. So I think you're trying to create a story you can believe in that works with what you got, while also every time they give you a morsel, you're like, oh, let's weave that in as quickly as we can. So yeah, I think that was kind of how we built it. The other thing was that it became pretty clear to me that we were supposed to be trying to create the first like search engine algorithm, and we all know that ended up working out for some folks. So I just decided that we were it. I didn't have that information. I had that we were Caltech and that we were chosen in this episode. But I find people like Steve Jobs really interesting, like total visionaries who are brilliant and also really difficult to be around, and for a lot of reasons. And I thought that was a fun story to say, like, oh yeah, we're it. In this universe, Rover is Google. Like we're gonna be those people. And if we're not, the show will tell me that. But that gives me a place to say, if I believe that's true, then my character is one of the smartest people on planet Earth. And that is a cool place to operate from.
Okay, so that's where it starts for you. If we talk more broadly about the landscape of the show itself, you come on for season 4. It's the final season. The show's been running for a while, but you're coming on with a bunch of other new people. So there's new energy and the show is ending. So like that's a lot of different things to be colliding. What did it feel like to be on set?
A new kid on the block for sure. Especially because they all were starting to wrap up, 4 seasons. It's like high school or college, 4 years, they're the seniors, they have all the memories and they're wanting to share in that last time. I was really grateful to be coming in with a whole like kind of new class of people because it gives you some people to have relationship with right off the bat and share that we're the new kids at school kind of energy. Um, so yeah, I would say early on, it just felt like trying to find my sea legs. The one thing I did have though was that I knew Carrie Bechet from years ago. We weren't great friends, but she had dated a friend of mine from a summer program, and I had visited them in Chicago, and we spent like a week. And in that week, I think we identified each other as like, oh, you also like talking about Stanislavski and nerding out over different plays and being the kind of collegiate theater nerd. So it was fun to get to see her and to get to work together and to know another person who was going to be there.
That
So I
helps
think
a
that
lot because you worked with her
helped
quite a
it.
bit.
Yeah. So I mean, it's also funny because it's like, okay, my friend is now going to be the most intimidating person in the room. Let's go. But that's a really fun thing to get to play. And I think that's one of the coolest things about when you get to do this for a while is people you meet when you're 20 comes back around so many years later. So
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So if we start looking at some of the scene work, in 401, which is So It Goes, we're going to see the Rover team updating Donna and sort of pitching, but very uncomfortably for more money. So, because they're working on a medical records indexing program. So they want more money for that. Elliot seems to be the team lead from what we can gather. We don't get to see the previous interactions that Donna had with them. This isn't a first pitch. But going into this, like, why do you think the team was so nervous to pitch to Donna? Because we don't get to see what happened before that.
I think that the place we found ourselves in was starting from desperation, that we need a job, we need money, we need someone to say yes. And I think every actor understands that feeling really truthfully. So it's something that we can like bring to the table. um I think in terms of spokesperson for the group, that dynamic worked out really interestingly because Cecil gets to have his secret that kind of is living in the background. And I feel like Elliot and Vera are working out some very classic late 80s, early 90s couple work patterns that are not the healthiest in the world in terms of who gets to take lead and why. So I think all that stuff is really interesting to get to explore. My parents worked at the same business when I was growing up and took on those kind of roles by rote. And so it was kind of fascinating to get to step into that in almost the exact same years my parents were raising us. Um, so yeah, I don't know. That answer your question a little bit?
We got to walk a mile in their shoes.
Yeah,
How about that?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's interesting. So the result of this meeting is that Donna is like, you want more funding? I'll give you 24 hours to come up with an idea that's worthy of that funding. And they all kind of gulp and then walk away. They come back with an idea to index magazines with their algorithm. And Donna's like, no, 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 that's not it. She's trying to lead them down a path to get them to talk about the web. Like that's the words she wants to come out of their mouth because she was just having a conversation with Gord where he dropped an idea like that. So she's really trying to like feed this to them to get them to say it themselves. So I'm kind of interested about like, how much of this is a results oriented look at it. It's hard to tell whether Rover's idea was too small
Mhm.
or like Donna is just trying to get the like in stick it to Gordon with stealing his idea. So I'm curious for your take on the Rover team. I know how you were thinking about them coming into this role, but once you see this on the page, how talented are they? How much potential do they have? How much do they have the big idea? Do they have legs in this industry or not? Is this like an issue with Donna and not with the team?
Do you want me to answer like objectively, or what's Elliot's point of view on that?
Both would be interesting if they're different.
Oh, I mean, I think for Elliot, Elliot's the spokesperson, and I thought about. I don't mean I literally like tried to make him Steve Jobs or anything crazy like that. I'm more just I thought about that character a lot as someone who, as my understanding is, he didn't actually have a lot of like practical coding skills. He had the ideas and believed in them and just said this is going to happen and was kind of insistent upon that and an aesthetic and a kind of outlook. And I liked that for Elliot. It made sense of him being the spokesperson. Is like, yes, we can do anything. Do you need this idea? We'll do that. You need a different idea? Whatever it is, we will do that. And that confidence, I think, is a certain type of like male privilege that was interesting to kind of get to play with him of just saying, well, it is so. And I felt like, Cecil's going to figure it out. He's my genius friend. I'm good. Vera knows what she's doing. We figure it out. I think about them almost, I can imagine them at Caltech, all basically like punting on a project until the last minute, but always getting it done. And it's just like, well, why not keep doing that until the world tells you you failed?
Mm. When you say that, is Elliot Joe of a
I
new
mean,
era?
so the thought crossed my mind a little bit that not like, again, not in the same way, like I'm not going to try to play anything like it, but it's good writing to have characters who mirror some of the earlier traits of some of these guys. And so
Yeah.
you don't want to like directly quote it. It's I know it's glib, but I think it's there in the writing.
Well, I mean,
I
it's
felt like it
it's
was
certainly
there.
not direct. I mean, I never even thought to compare those two characters until this very moment. But but as you're saying this, I'm like, oh, okay, it's a different team, but it's kind of an interesting. He's like the Joe of the next generation, sort of.
Well, and those questions of like how brilliant is he is like front and center for so much of it. And so I think to get to kind of reevaluate those questions in others, like I think it's really good last season writing. I think that's a really cool way to re-examine it all and to get to like play a little foil and reflection in that is just such a cool memory.
Hmm. So another thing that's pretty cool about the rover as a unit is that we're going to get some team leadership that's put in place around them. So in 402 Signal to Noise, we're going to see that Tanya and Boz have now been assigned to both supervise rover, for better or for worse. They have very different management styles. Tanya seems to be more sort of organized, sort of like project management structure. Boz is more the storyteller and the motivator, it seems. How were these two as leaders? Like, was this a cohesive team overall?
I think some, I don't think it was the most cohesive team. I don't think that always is the problem. I think sometimes friction can create some interesting energy, and that might have been where some of the power was. But my experience as Elliot listening to them was often being really frustrated. I felt like Boz never really got what we believed we could do. Was always the like, okay, kid, okay, okay. It's like, no, fuck you. I have a kid on the way. Let's go. And, can I swear on here? I'm so sorry. I didn't even
Go
ask
for
ahead of
it.
time.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
good. Let's do it. Um, so and then Tanya, I felt basically like that she was there more to help us, but also a babysitter. And I remember basically feeling all the time like, I like you, but sometimes we're just going to have to kind of not listen to you. And that conflict was often what was happening, is us feeling like we were bigger than our britches. And was that true or not? But often the energy coming at us was like, chill out for a minute. Um, so yeah, I think it wasn't the most cohesive. I don't think everyone was rowing in the same direction.
Mhm. Um, you mentioned something earlier that I want to tap into a bit. So in 403 in miscellaneous, we're going to see the team struggling to basically create the first web crawler. I mean, you're doing search engines, algorithms, trying to figure out the things that we know now were the
Yeah.
idea. Like in hindsight, this was a good plan. What was it like then working on those scenes, knowing that this in fact was a good idea?
I think it's you get an audition to play a character who might be a genius. That's like, how do you play that? Is it like, it's a fun question. You can't like play smart, and I feel like knowing that that technology turned out to be real gave me like a real solid footing for him to have some kind of utter certainty about where we're going. Certain people, I think, like other characters on the show, are visionaries. They see it, and like maybe they don't even understand it, but like, I see it. It's right there. And I think knowing that we weren't talking about some technology that failed or some technology that didn't exist allowed me to really stand behind feeling like I was right, no matter what scene I was in.
That's so great. um, it's all confirmation. It's proof.
Yeah.
One really, actually, it was more than one scene. A sequence that was just immaculate to watch is this incredibly awkward dinner. Donna is tough on the team in that episode. And so she tries to make up for it. And she thinks the way to do that is to have more time with them. So I'm going to invite them to my home and we're going to do a dinner.
Yep.
It's incredibly uncomfortable. She outs Elliot and Vera's pregnancy. Her daughter Joni crashes and is making fun of Donna. In the end, Donna tells an encouraging story and about kissing their baby every chance they get and all that. There's a lot going on this scene. There's also a lot of great moments with everybody in the scene who's just looking at each other when Donna's saying stuff. Tons of awesome moments of self-reflection and moments of acknowledgement between other pairings of characters. So tell me about this scene. What do you remember about working on actually multiple scenes? What do you remember about working on these?
That was a lot of fun. That was a really good long night. Sometimes you do a shoot that's a long night and it's like, I don't know, you're cold the whole time and you're setting up most of the time and there's not doing the time. Other times you're like getting to work a lot and you're getting to work with really good people on really, really fun material and you're getting to do it a bunch. And dinner scenes are like courtroom scenes. Like there's a lot of coverage to get. So you're going to do that thing so many times. So getting to work and just work with Carrie while she's doing that monologue, getting to work with Toby Huss for that whole night. I mean, that guy is one of the most fun people on the planet. You interviewed him. That energy, as far as I know, in my limited time working, I mean, it never stops. It is constantly joyful and playful. And so to get to have that be my job, like that's just the best. I will say that there's some tech jargon in that one that was, for the whole series, the hardest one for me to just get in my head. And then there were moments of utter panic right before we would take it that I thought really actually served very well in certain moments of awkwardness, of just like, damn, these words. So I remember a lot of things from that night. Also, just getting to hang out in a house like that while we're setting up. You know, it's just some person's house in Atlanta. So you're hanging out in their bedrooms or their living room. And that's where cast is all kind of setting up. And it creates like a slight hangout vibe. I don't know. You're just in this very domestic place with these people. You get to share space for a day. And it's lovely. I don't know. It was a really good time.
This is nice to hear. In terms of like team spirit, was this dinner a net win or a net loss for Rover?
Net win.
Okay.
Yeah, a bunch of losses that seem like we're really heading out the door to have a surprise turnaround win.
Okay. Well, there's that.
Yeah.
At least we'll all have that dinner.
Yeah.
I'm noticing in a lot of the scenes that you're in, Elliot seems to be the most frequent user of agag mugs. The number of times you're holding agag mugs in a scene,
Yeah.
getting people coffee, like it's all the time. Let's tell me about props. You know, you're in
Oh, yeah.
scenes that are all set in the 90s. You're in these specific scenes with these specific props. You know, like talk to me about set deck.
So fun. Oh my goodness. So much stuff to play with. What do I have to say? So the coffee, definitely, I remember making that choice many times, thinking that we never have enough time to rest. So these people can't sleep. I can't sleep. And also, as it felt like the story was revealing more and more that maybe Cecil's the one doing the majority of the programming, followed by Vera, that I was like, hey, bud, you need another? So it became part of, I think, his forward momentum. I feel like I'm surprised other stimulants didn't show up, considering how intense all that was. But so yeah, I think that piece for the coffee was there. But the most fun, I'm a tactile guy, so I loved the old computers with the clickety keyboards that just have that like really satisfying sound that I feel like for some reason airlines still have everyone use, that just clickety clickety click. I love a good chalkboard. Like that's just so absurd to me to get to see in sets nowadays. And so seeing what they put on there and then them saying like, look, if you do the research, add whatever you want, like go for it. So we got to interact with it and kind of build it out. And I think we did some like between setups, like jokes of Dead Poet Society up there and things like that. So yeah, it was just fun to interact with. Everything is so tactile. There's so many cool things about modern projects and things that shoot in the future, but there's less tactile stuff to play with. And that is something I will always love. So that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, this is awesome. And here, you know, you make a choice to hold some mugs and somebody asks you a question about it 10 years later. So there you go.
There you go. Exactly. I'm glad you noticed.
So in terms of, so that's in terms of props, in terms of like 90s details or maybe current events or stories that came up in the script or were brought to mind by things that were being said, was there anything like pop culturally that jumped out at you that was being addressed in the story?
I mean, the fact that there was an episode called Nancy and Tanya, like that, I remember that as a really wildly formative experience of just what the heck is on the television and what do people do to each other. And so, yeah, I mean, I grew up during a lot of that stuff. So I feel like I have a kid's memory of it. So it's a lot of nostalgia and it's a lot of like pieces. So I would say that it felt very easy to slip into in that way. And then, we're so lucky to have such incredible people working on that show, doing the set deck, costuming it, like helping with all of that. Because you go to your first fitting and you start to try on those clothes, and the character starts to show up in ways you could have never imagined before. I think I remember Christian, who plays Cecil, telling me that, like, there's this shirt. I want to wear this shirt. This shirt is him. I hope they pick this one. And lo and behold, I think he got that shirt. He's like, it's him. And I love when those details just kind of come to life like that.
Mm. You know, in that episode, the Tanya Nancy episode, we're going to see Elliot is pretty vocal, and he's still beating the drum that Rover needs Series A funding. It's always about the funding with Elliot.
Money.
It's amazing how vocal Elliot is willing to be with Donna, who is pretty savage in season 4. I mean, she's got a harder edge this season than we've seen in the past. What does he think of her, even at this point in the story, now that he's been working with her for a while?
I think that he does respect her, but I also think that he believes she's not paying enough attention, that she's too spread thin to really know what's going on. And so, yes, we can learn from her. And yes, we are thrilled to be aligned with her. But also, like, you don't know what you're talking about here. Like, this is not, you delegated to us, delegate to us. Let us do the thing that we came in to do. And I think that conflict just kind of continues to rise throughout. Yeah, because it just doesn't, I don't think Elliot ever really gets his catharsis with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as we sort of see how their story wraps up, at the end of that episode, we're going to jump ahead a month. Rover has had a breakthrough with their algorithm. They've figured it out. They're getting the funding that they want. Donna, though, realized that it wasn't actually Cecil who did that work. And she threatens him by telling him, well, sure, okay, if you guys want to expand your team, we're just going to need you to, legally take the credit for this work that you did, because you did it, right? And that pressures Cecil to leave the team so he doesn't put Rover into jeopardy. Donna's going to take charge of, like, hiring, a chief technology officer in place. So it seems like, the business will continue on without Cecil. First of all, was that really a complete unknown information? Like, did Fear and Elliot really have no idea or no inkling that wasn't Cecil's work, is one question.
That's how I played it. That was how I played it. There was never an overt discussion about it. But to me, the belief that I had created in Cecil earlier, to me, that kind of stuff can act as blinders. I think one thing I've seen a lot in the world is just people being blind to their partners who are closest to them when they work, and kind of discovering that later, because you kind of see them the way you need to see them to get to where you need to get to. And so I don't want to speak for anyone else, but for me, that did come as a total shock.
So knowing that sort of there's a structure in place now for Rover to continue and grow into the future, what do you think the future does actually hold for Rover, and specifically for Elliot?
So I think I liked the idea that Elliot kind of existed as not like a replication of where Lee Pace was going, but like a similar kind of person. And I feel like that guy is going to have ups and downs, like impressive ups and some pretty savage downs. And so I feel like a kind of similar life is ahead for him, where I don't know if he and Vera are going to make it, because I don't know if he's the kind of person who is able to handle that kind of commitment and focus long term to one thing. But I also think he's not ready to lose, and he's going to have some pretty impressive things on his resume. And I think he probably financially is doing just fine. Is he happy? I don't know.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find really happy people on this show. It's
Yeah, I
not
know.
easy.
Caffeinated, positive.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about the people that you worked with on this show. You've been able to mention some things here and there, but first of all, let's talk about your fellow Rover teammates. Let's start there. Rover teammates.
wonderful. I really, really love getting to know them. So I was on the same floor of the hotel with Chelsea. And so whenever we would do the transpo and stuff, we would see each other. And it was nice to just like, so I was flying in from Los Angeles. So I have some family who were relatively nearby, but while I was shooting, you're put up, you're in a hotel, you're just kind of living your life. Your whole family's across the coast. So it's nice to just have a buddy and be able to chat about the job or life or whatever. Um, and then Christian lived in the area, I think. And so he was able to show me around Atlanta a little bit. And that was like a really fun, neat thing. So we became friends. It was really nice. Actually, Christian just moved to Los Angeles not long ago, and we've been hanging out. It's really fun. Um, so yeah, they're just really great to work with. And I feel like our energies are really different and complementary. And so it was very easy to play together, that no one was ever stepping on each other's toes, that we did kind of have our own parts of the orchestra and that they played off of each other really nicely. So yeah, it was a really lucky break to have such a wonderful crew.
Oh, that's awesome. How about working with your supervisors in the show? So we're Toby Hess as Boz and Sasha Marfa as Tanya.
So Sasha is just one of the most lovely human beings on the planet and makes anything easier and just kind of effortless. I mean, just lovely, easy energy and so fun to work with on set. Toby is very fun. I mean, like that, but that is also like energy's coming on the set. You better be ready to catch it, because if you don't, like, you seem like such a jerk. Like he's creating so much fun stuff, and I mean, he can do it again and again till infinity, but each one is unique, right? And so if you miss it, you cost it. And so there is an extra level of, okay, I got to be ready. And I mean, you just laugh more on set when he's there and when other people are there. It's just, it's a talent. Uh, to not give into the stress, to not give into well, we're making an important television show and have lots of important things to do and make our day. So like, it's fun.
Yeah.
I think every show needs somebody like that.
Okay, I mean, that's awesome. That's absolutely the vibe I've gotten from him
Yeah,
myself, and from other interviews that I'm hearing as well. Now, you knew Carrie before you started working on
a
this
little bit. Yeah.
show, but tell me a bit about working with her. You had quite a lot of scenes with her.
I mean, she has such impressive power. She is able to hold that space so confidently in a way that can be intimidating, especially when your character needs something from her and she is so comfortable not giving you what you want. Her ability to like not people please is incredible, and it was a rich thing to work off of. It wasn't always the warmest, but also the character wasn't supposed to be. It was sometimes intimidating, but you get that amount of force from someone, and like you're dancing with each other. So if they give you that much, you get it. And that means you can give it back to them. And especially because our first scenes were with her, to start like that, like, oh, the engines, like, oh, we're going. So I thought it was awesome. Just total pro, gets it done. Yeah.
Yeah. I especially love that first scene that you have with her, because there's that pitch that you're doing, and there is such a, like you mentioned, a desperation behind it, and there's this visual cue the audience has been given, because she has the reversible watch, and we have seen her in another meeting flip the watch over, like, I'm about to be savage on you. And then at the end of the meeting, when she was done with that person, she flipped it back over. And at the start of her meeting with the Rover team, the watch is flipped over and she's just about to flip it back when Elliot's like, we've got this.
Yep.
Like, we've got an idea.
Wait. Yeah, no, it's
because
a
once
last
that
minute.
watch gets flipped over, there's no coming back.
And that's like that power. It's like you can, to really believe that someone is going to be done with you versus acting like you believe someone, it's like, that's such a gift to get. So yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you remember specifically about the process of shooting Halt and Catch Fire? Because you've worked on, a number of other projects. So in comparison, what stands out to you about this show?
The just So from the crew getting to in the cast, getting to be a part of something as it ends was an experience I don't think I've really had before, where like you knew it as it was happening. I remember when like rumors started to float around about certain characters' fates, trying not to spoil.
Oh
Um,
no, go for it. Everybody's been
but
warned. You've all been warned.
yeah, but like you're like, oh my goodness, I'm one of the first people to hear this. Like on planet Earth, that's just so neat. And it instantly makes you feel, I don't know, at least it made me feel a certain amount of like, God, I really want to get this right. I really want to like show up for this. Um, so I just remember a lot of that. There was just a lot of warmth, a lot of appreciation for what had been, and the opportunity to get to end it on your own terms. I think there's a graduation kind of feeling about that, that bittersweet feeling, and to be a part of that was really, really cool. Um, the other thing that I remember about the show was that my aunt was who lived in Atlanta was dating a fella at the time named Jim, and Jim was out of the country, and so Jim let me use his house to stay there. And it was 2017, so it was right after the inauguration, and they were having the John Ossoff congressional race, and it was that district that I was happened to stay in. And I have never stayed in a place that is that hotly contested election as it's going, people knocking on the door every single day, just like a constant barrage of stuff. I'm like, I'm not from here. I don't know what Jim is going to do, guys. I have my feelings, but and I remember at one point, Christian needed a place to stay with his girlfriend for that. So they joined us and we watched like a bootleg copy of Hamilton together. And I think sang the entire damn thing until like 2 a.m. one time. And I will remember sharing that time with them in Jim's house in Atlanta in the middle of the election as everyone's screaming about it. It's just, it was a wild memory. It's like, it's happening right now.
What a sense of place and
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. It's just like, that's one of the coolest things about getting to travel for work is your life just kind of temporarily stops and starts over for a minute. And that's an interesting opportunity.
Yeah. And see, what pieces of you come to that place in that time. And then having to be somebody else for your job. It's an
Yeah.
interesting
Absolutely.
confluence of events
Yeah.
there.
It was a fun, He was such a fun person to be though, because up to that point in my career, I had played kids. I started young and I'd found a nice niche for myself out of college playing like under 18 who cried. And like bad things would happen to me in dramas, things like that. And I had a real hard time getting those same folks to see me as an adult. And I was by that point, I didn't like playing that young anymore. And so getting to play Elliot, play someone who's going to get married, have a kid, the choice to have a goatee was like a big one to me. I didn't want him to be clean shaven. I wanted him to like, this is a young adult, and he wants to be seen this way too. If I'm playing him, then he has my baggage, and my baggage is I don't want you to see me as a kid. So, and that made my girlfriend so happy at the time to have me have a goatee. She did not love it. So yeah, that was a nice kind of moment for my career too, of just getting to have that experience.
Mm. You've had a chance to shout out a lot of different people that you worked with on the show. Are there any other people, cast or crew, that you wanted to acknowledge? Maybe people that you worked with closely or just happened to run into behind the scenes?
I mean, Christian and Chelsea are the main ones I want to shout out. Like we really were a team during that. The experience of shooting it was an experience of getting to know and hang out with them. And my experience when I think about Halt and Catch Fire is first and foremost like being around a table with them. So I think that's the most. Getting to work with Carrie after that is really, really just like it's just neat. I don't know. You don't think that people are going to kind of come back to your life later. You were saying the choice to carry a coffee mug comes back 10 years later. The idea that like your friend's girlfriend, you really remembered like talking shop with at one point. Like you now get to act on the television show you love that people really care about. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, this is so great to hear. Well, look, I know it's been a very strange time in your industry.
Yes.
So I guess I have to sort of put a broad stroke to this question, but like either what are you up to now that you can talk about, or what have you done recently-ish? Or, is there any work that you've done that you want to shout out? Let's just make that as broad as it needs to be given the
Yeah,
last
I
several
mean,
years.
The work stoppages have been tough, but I've been fortunate to get to keep doing what I love to do. I had a really fun arc on Perry Mason on HBO. If anyone missed that, I'm in the second season of that, but that is just a truly beautifully made, well acted period show. And so if you like, I mean, everything that *Halt and Catch Fire* has, it's a different period and it's a different genre, but you have wonderful actors and something beautifully, richly done. That was really cool. And I got to do a role on the last season of Walker that I really loved. He was described in the breakdown as a Kendall Roy type, and boy, that would be my total dream to get to play a role like that. And so he's a wind billionaire tycoon who ends up getting strangled to death with his own tie. And I had such a blast doing that. My character had like a Ferrari and a Lamborghini and a private plane, and I was just like, yes, more of these roles, please. That makes me really happy. And then the rest of the time, I have a 3-year-old with my wife. And so we're, very happy parents. We're getting ready to send her to preschool. And I teach acting classes. I have an acting studio in Los Angeles. And it's kind of the perfect gig for an actor because when you're not working, you have that to do. And when you are working, you're allowed to leave your other job behind.
Oh, wow. A lot going on for you, but so many good things for us to check out. And I know folks who listen to these really like to go explore other work that people have done. So this will
so sweet.
be fun for everybody to check those out if they haven't already seen that work. But thank you so much for taking all this time and
My
talking about
pleasure.
the show.
Oh, it's so fun to get to revisit it. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And hang out for just a second when we're done. But to everybody who's listening to this and watching this, go out there and watch *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Watch it.
Bye, everyone.